Hi, hello everybody. I'm Nicola and I'm working as a technical consultant for Odoo, and I will answer pretty every technical question you could have on Odoo, and until someone asks, so sorry, how to start the chat to help me to work on my site. Well, I can't hear your question, but what would you like to do to help on your website? So, no. So, it's the question is not precise enough for me to help you. XML PC, how to get notification from Odoo when someone or Odoo sends you a message notification. So, well, I will start an Odoo server. While I'm missing the enterprise add-ons. Here it is. Okay, here it is. So if you have the chat installed, you can have queries, long polling queries issued from your web browser to the Odoo server. So you can have a look at the network on the browser, and you will have the details of the queries issued from Odoo from the web client to the Odoo server, and you can either repeat those queries to get notifications. Why Odoo for partners is so expensive? I'm sorry, but I am not a commercial guy. I'm not a salesman, so you should ask a salesman. It's not my responsibility to answer this kind of questions. Here you have the detail of the query issued to the server, and you get the answer from Odoo. Yes, it's a long polling mechanism. So the Odoo notification is by pulling the notifications from the server and not pushing notification from the server to the client. It's not a WebSocket if it's what you are talking about. It's more the client who fetch information from the server every 50 seconds. Yeah, Chris Lehman, I will ask you to ask your question in English. I'm not a Dutch speaker, so I cannot understand your question. And Deepak found multiple matches error in import while validating. If you give me a more details about the thing you try to import and how to reproduce it, I can help you to solve it. Yeah, I'm using Linux Mint, but there is no mandatory distribution to use. You can use whatever you want. Most of the people here use Ubuntu, and I do not recommend the template pack to develop. I know that most of the guys here are using Sublime Text for code editing. Me, I'm using Atom. There is also guys who use PyCharm or Eclipse. So you can use whatever you want. So about the mail bounce alias and mail catcher alias. Mail bounce alias and mail catcher alias. It's the for the catch-all is it's the email used for reply to headers in the mail sent for the response going back to Odoo, and for the bounce I have to ask to one of my colleagues. In multi-company in V8, an access error when creating an opening balance. It says document type REST partner operation read. Other companies works fine. A user in a multi-company setup have access to all companies and the child companies of the companies he has access to. So security users. Yeah. Except for the admin who get all the access to all companies. If you got access to the Dixis company, you can gain access to the Dixis company and all child companies. And to ensure this, in the record rules over the REST partner model, you gain access to no. You gain access to the. You should have a record rule based on the company of the partner. You should have here on the object REST partner record rule based on the company, a record rule like this one, for example. How to separate date time field into two fields. We have one field in database, but in UI multiple field, one for date and second for time. If you want to separate this, you can create a computed field which will extract the date from the date time field, and a second computed field which will extract the time from the date time field. Then you will save the data in the date time field on the database, and in the UI you will have two fields, and you will have to set another compute reverse method to store the value in the date time field. We want to use Odoo in our classroom like we did last year. When we put Odoo in the name, we have access to our educational accounts for 10 months. But we don't have access for more than 40 days. No, I don't think it's normal. This should be, maybe you have created in August outside of the educational period. I have to ask to one of my colleagues. I cannot ask this question. Ronald Whopper is where to look for a solution. I have to find. Yeah, Ronald. Okay, it's regarding the multi-company. You should go here to a record rule here in the security. You will find here record rule based on your partner object for the company access to ensure that the main issue you are facing, you can disable the record rule or add a record rule like 1 is 1 or something like that, and ensure it's working. So you have to double check your security, your record rules on the REST partner object. How can I store document link and open using default application? What do you mean by document link? You mean a link to a file on your file store, or you mean a file, a web link, or stuff like that? Say with CAD and PDF with Adobe Reader Extra. If you want to add fields on the system, add files in the database, you should create a binary field and store your document in the binary field. And if you want to make a link to a file stored somewhere, you have, I think, on settings, the structure attachments, you have here an URL in the here attachment modules, and you can set the URL of the file. But I don't think that you can link to a file on your file system. Please let us know if the recording of this is available. I don't know what you're talking about. We'll check it out. Will it work correctly for time zones? Okay, for time zones, the old dates and times are stored in UTC on the server. That means if you want to have dates and time set accordingly to the time zone, you should let the date and time on the same field. If you do not want to separate in two different fields to keep the web client converting the date, the UTC date time into your time zone date time, you should create your own widget to render the date time correctly in the form view. customer. I'm importing customers' data from CSV file, but in state column I have 5 records as CA, and in same column I get that error code found multiple matches in state. FID now. Okay, I hope you have solved your problem. I have brand new enterprise installation with demo data enabled. I'm trying to install an app and I get the error. I also have ticket raised, issue. Yeah, if you have already a ticket, a colleague of mine will answer your issue. I don't think that I will solve your issue right now live. How can I get sure that AutoDB is running in the same time zone as the users? All the database is running in UTC. It's the web client which do the translation between the UTC date time and the local time zone. So you have to set correctly the time zone of the user, and the web client will do the conversion. Odoo Post seems to be using UTC. Yes, the database is in UTC. The database is all in UTC. So it's correct. So depending on the time zone, yes, the date can change due to this conversion. Are these live sessions being recorded? Yes, they are. How to configure an account in Odoo. Example says team to receive email from customers such that sales team can see all the emails in the discuss channel. Yes. Yeah. Channel. Create a new channel. And normally, if you create a new channel, my channel, yes, normally this channel has automatically an email address configured, but I can be wrong, and I need to ensure with a colleague of mine if what I'm saying is right. Can I access the data of PostgreSQL database from SQL Server? No, I don't think that you can access the data of PostgreSQL database from SQL Server, but all the Odoo objects are published using XML RPC. My colleague showed you last week how to use XML RPC to call pretty any object within the Odoo database. So normally my colleague gives you the information. Okay. Is there any other question? No. No other question? Okay, until there is another question, I will start with what I've prepared to show you. No other question, right? Okay. Yeah. How could I use a variant BOM inside another BOM? You have to, this kind of question should be asked to a functional colleague of mine. I'm not able to answer the functional questions, and I'm sorry for that. Yeah. So, Pomil Shah, if your files are stored on the same network, for Odoo, it doesn't matter. The best you can do in your case is to publish your files using a web server, even if your web server is password protected or linked to your Active Directory or stuff like that, and you have the relevant widgets to use with your attachment file. What is the V8 formula for product lead time? And which models and field are involved? Is there any documentation on this? For product lead time, I do not understand what you mean by product lead time. So how can I access data of my Odoo easily? Any ID? Yeah, you can use, so Deepak, you can access your, you can easily access all of your data using XML RPC. You have web service API. You can connect to your server and get back all the information you have in your database. You will even get access to the non-stored computed fields, and this will respect the record rules. So a user will not gain access to unauthorized informations. You can even, using XML RPC, export data from the database. So let me show you. I have to remind where I store things. So this is XML RPC. Yeah, read CSV. Here, for example, we are searching for products in the database, and then we will export that, call the export data method. This method takes in parameter the list of IDs to export and the columns you want to export. The ID here is not the database ID, but the XML ID. If the object doesn't have any XML ID, the system will generate one. So here you will get all the products from your database with the name I like iPad. You will get here in Python a list of lists, and each list contains 3 columns with the values, the XML ID, the name, and the list price of the product. You can use here even computed fields. It's not necessarily stored fields. Don't you think notifications should be easier to apply? Maybe you have to ask to, you can open a ticket, and then the people and the support here at Odoo will handle your feedback and will take it into account. Yeah, you can also install something like PG admin to access your database, but you will not gain access from SQL Server to the PG admin. You have, if SQL Server can access to other databases using ODBC, you can install an ODBC driver for PostgreSQL. This is from V5. Ronald Woperice. Yes, okay. The product lead time, okay. Maybe it's from V5, but I'm not aware of this. So if you can help me to better understand the question, I will try to answer you. Is it possible to use landed costs with average costing method instead of real price? You should ask my functional colleague for this kind of question. I'm not the one to help you with this question, and I'm sorry for that. Can I make list views to order computed fields? To order a computed field. Can I make list views to order computed fields? If it's what you mean, in debug mode, technical, database structure, models. If you take a model, you have the list of all the fields. If this is what you mean. How can we integrate with fingerprint machines, especially ZK, as it's the most popular? I'm not aware of the ZK fingerprint machines. The easiest way to have Odoo interact with the external world is using the web service API and having your ZK software talking to Odoo using the XML RPC. Maybe your fingerprint machine have a specific API, but I'm not aware of this specific API. So I'm not able to help you more than that in this case, except if you give me a link to the fingerprint machine documentation with a ticket, and I will have a look to your ticket offline. As soon as a computed field on the list, it won't. Yeah, okay, understood, Gustavo. In fact, the sorting in a model is done by the PostgreSQL server. So it means to be able to sort on a field, this field have to be stored, but you can have a computed stored field to be able to sort on this field, but you cannot sort on a non-stored field because it's the database server who perform the sorting. Is it possible to use landed cost? Okay, as already said, I'm not the one to answer your question. You should ask this to a colleague, to a functional colleague of mine. Okay, well, wait a bit if there is any question. Okay, the question is this. Just adding store true to the field will do it. Yeah, let me show you. Let's say, yeah, sales customers. Here is the list view. I have name, phone, and email. I will add a new field and a new computed field, then sort on this new computed field just by adding stores true on the field. So we'll add a new computed field. Here I do it using the web interface, but if you do it in Python code for the store and sorting, it's the same thing. It doesn't matter in this case. X new field. My new field. It's a char field. It's non-stored, non-copied. Dependencies is name and X new field is equal to record.name. Here it is. Save and close. Save. Now I'm able here to okay, we'll add the new field in the view itself. Normally we should do an inherited view, but to go a bit faster, I will do it directly here. Here it is. My new field is here, and I'm not able to sort this as I'm able to sort on the other columns. So go back to our field definition. Here is the new field stored. I will index it also. Here it is. Go back to the customer list. And now I'm able to sort on the new field just because it's stored. Okay. So Gustavo, here is how to solve your issue. In a production env, it takes some time to produce an assembly from material. How to compute the time date from production times. Yeah, same thing, Ronald, so sorry, but you should also ask this to the versus scope. Okay. Okay, so I need to go back to the as soon as there is a no, that's not the question. So the best I can do is ask Ronald. The best that I can do is forward your question to a functional colleague of mine. He will answer more faster than me. I will have to search deep in the code, and it will not be very interactive to see someone searching in the code or stuff like that. We are using analytic accounts to track our project expenses when creating RFQs automatically from manufacturing order. We can't find any way to populate the analytic accounts. On the purchase order lines, is this possible? Yes, by code it's possible. So I need to install purchase module. Module is installing locally. My laptop is a bit less fast than real server, so it takes a bit of time to install the module, install the stock, then the purchase module. Okay, normally it's installed. On purchase, you create a new request for quotation. So if you want to send to use analytic accounts when you create RFQs, here on the purchase order module, you can override the, you can create a new module. We'll show you. In your module, you have to depends on purchase to ensure your module is loaded after the purchase, and then in models you can here create a new class, purchase order, which inherits from models.model. Then you inherit is purchase order, and then you can overload the create method. We'll need to check the parameters of the create method, and you have to call super of purchase order probably self dot create, and the same parameters. And then here, after or before having created your purchase order, you will be able to generate analytic accounting entries based on the criteria you want. Hope this will answer your question. Is it possible to export a list of stock history into Excel with an accumulated column at the end? The current stock history report is not user-friendly with SRC and destination locations. Stock history with an accumulated column at the end. Exporting the list to Excel is quite easy to do, but having the accumulated column at the end means you will have to create your own method to create the Excel file, and you will need to generate the Excel file yourself using a Python library to do so, and you will have to create the accumulated lines yourself. I don't think that there is a way to have sims automatically in the Excel exports. World of 3 in the form view of res user groups. Yeah, the form view of the REST users is automatically generated. And then, as I know, it's not possible to change manually this view without facing issues. So the view is generated automatically by Odoo in the user file, the base module. Yeah. Yeah, you have to override this method if you want to change the behavior of the generated view, but I don't think it's a good idea to change this. Maybe if you explain to a functional guy or on a ticket what you want to achieve, maybe we will find a solution for you. But I don't think that adding attributes on the group fields is a good idea. We are using Odoo Online. Is it still possible to create this module? Well, yes and no. You cannot create this module if you are using Odoo Online. But on Odoo Online, if you want to do some stuff when you create a purchase order, you will have to go here in technical, install the base action rule module. Here it is. If you have installed the base action rule module, you have access to automated actions. And an automated action, you can purchase order, when to run on create, and actions, you will run some server actions. So you will perform something when a purchase order will be created. You can filter the created purchase orders, which will trigger this automated action. And in the server actions, you can create a new server actions. Based on the purchase order, you will receive it's more limited in a server action than in a standard Python module. But if you want to create analytic entries, you have the env in the server action. So you will do something like account analytic, don't remember the model you will use, dot create, then you will give the name of your entries, a value, and so on. So this will be triggered each time a purchase order will be created. So even on Odoo Online, it's possible to create analytic entries when a purchase order is created, but not the same way you will do it on premise. It's just a matter of habit. It's not more complicated. If I had any custom field and I upgrade that module, the custom field gets discarded. Why? Normally, if you add a custom field and you upgrade the module, the field is not discarded at all. The only thing that can drop your field is that if you add an XML ID to your field and this XML ID contains the name of your module, when the system will perform the upgrade, he will list the XML IDs, then perform the upgrade of the module, and when the upgrade ends, the system will see that there is an XML ID in your database which doesn't exist anymore on the module code. So the system will drop it. But if you create a custom field and you upgrade the module, the field remains. So let's say, for example, I have had it earlier in this session, a field on the REST partner module. Partner. My field is over here. I can upgrade the base module and the system will not drop the field. Minus demo minus upgrade the base module, and the field will remain. It will take a bit of time to upgrade the module, but the field will remain. First time user of Odoo product, is it Odoo Online or Com or Enterprise you are using for this demonstration? Here I'm using the Odoo Enterprise version on my computer. Earlier I've used the community version of Odoo, and the SaaS version of Odoo is so Odoo Online is the same one as the Enterprise version. The Odoo Online is the Enterprise version, so I'm using normally the Enterprise version of Odoo. Can you show an XML RPC example on how to upload a file to a Disqus channel? Yeah, it will takes me a bit of time to show this. I have another session, and maybe I think it will be better to create this example for the next time rather than creating in live now and lose time to create an XML RPC sample. So send me an email. You send an email. You open a ticket, and they will forward the ticket to me, and I will prepare this for the next session, and I can even give you the sample, the XML RPC sample. And if you come to our Odoo experience event in October, we can meet and we can discuss this, and I can show you this. But it will take a bit of time to show this now, and we will lose too much time to create this. In a multi-company environment, is it possible to create several domain aliases, test.com and sky.com, and corresponding email aliases such as ND and ND? I think yeah, you can create aliases, but on the companies, no. Well, I need to search a bit to check this, but normally it's doable, and if it's not doable, we can use aliases on the mail server to have the mail server forwarding test.com to sky.com and so on. So I need to double check to answer this question correctly. That's the Android mobile app work with Odoo Enterprise installed on our server? If yes, how do I configure it? Which Android mobile app do you talk about? Are you talking about the timesheet application or another application? Hello, I want to select multiple products at a time in purchase and sales orders, not one by one. How can I accomplish that? Not easy. Because in a purchase order, when you select a product, the system had a line per selected product. So what you have to do is to, for example, on purchase order here, you will have to add a button or link, it doesn't matter, which will open a wizard. The wizard will show you products. You will select multiple products, then validate the wizard, and once the wizard will be validated, the validation of the wizard will create the different order lines, and will refresh the one-to-many field on the of the order. So it's not just an option to click to tick somewhere. It's better to have a button which will launch a wizard to select multiple products, and when those products are selected, you will be able to add multiple lines. Okay. I have Odoo Enterprise 10 hosted on my server. Yeah, okay, it doesn't matter for this question. It's the same if you have an Odoo Enterprise or a community version, or hosted on your server or on the SaaS. It's the same answer. So, should not be removed the module from XML. So what should I do for that? The field should not be removed after. Okay, you have okay, the field is removed from the XML form view. Okay, not from the database. Okay, that is because you've done what I've done here also. If I go to sales, then customers, list view, my field have disappeared, but here on the model, the field is still present, and what you want is being able to upgrade the module, then the view, but not having the field disappearing. To achieve this, you need simply to create an inherited view. So here in my tree view, instead of adding the field just after this field, I will add an inherited view. It is an extension view, which means this view will alter the original view. The sequence is mandatory, and the system will apply the inherited view by using the sequence order. So I will use XPath. Expression is, so I want to be just behind an existing field, so just behind this field. So I'm searching for a field which name is active, and I want to be set after. Here it is. Then I add my field. Field name is equal to x new field. Here it is. So I have an x new field after the active field. The active field is invisible, but it doesn't matter for the view rendering. Save. Refresh the view. No, I can safely upgrade the module. The field in the view will not disappear anymore. Hope that will help you in developing a new module. When purchase orders are created from manufacturing orders or reordering rule, if the same product is requested from multiple sources, it will group them all together on the same purchase order line. If it groups it, I cannot add the analytic accounts by line. Is it possible to change this behavior, as in create a new PO line for each procurement group? Well, yes, you can accomplish this, but no, it's not easy to do. You will have to override. It will not be, I think, doable on the SaaS, and you will need to override the method which creates the purchase order line from the procurement group. If I remember well, there is a function called which search for an existing line to group on, and you will have to override this method to ensure none of the lines are grouped together. How can I set up the system to automatically credit shipping costs when the line items are okay? To do this, you will have to create an automated action on the order to add a line when the total will be more than $900. The main advantage of the automated action is that it will be also available on the website and on the web shop without doing anything, because the web shop use the same method at the back end. How did you get technical tab at the top of your screen next to translation? I don't see it on my screen. The technical tab on top. Yeah, here, because you probably have this. You go here and you have settings, and you do not have the technical tab here. To get this, you will need to add debug in the URL to go in debug mode, and you have the technical tab here. And if you set debug equals to assets, you see that instead of sending the assets, the system will send you each JavaScript file one by one, and you will be able to debug more easily the JavaScript in the web interface of Odoo. Yeah, you're right, CSMMC. Okay, thanks. Okay, is there any other question? No more questions? how to create an autofill method using a partner ID to autofill some fields when I selected a partner ID. It's quite easy to achieve. So to autofill some fields when another field is filled, you have two use cases. The first one is when you want the user to be able to modify the value, and the second one is the use case where you do not want the user to change the value. So the first use case is called a non-change. When you will select a partner, for example, the name will be filled with the name of the partner, but the user will be able to change the name. The second use case is called a computed field. So when you select a partner, the system will compute the name, but the user will not be able to change the value. It's the main difference between the unchanged and the compute fields. And if you want to have, examples, you go to documentation here, then building a module, you have an unchanged, you will get examples of unchanged methods, and you will also get example of computed fields here. So if you want to autofill values when you are selecting a partner, I advise you to have a look at the computed and the unchanged fields. You can also have a look at the related fields. A related is a field which is not on the module itself. Let's say, for example, the sale order and the partner. You set the name of the partner as a related. The name of the partner will be available on the sale order, but if the user changed the name will be changed on the partner itself instead of just on the sale order. So you can use either unchanged, compute, or related, depending on your use case, to autofill fields when you select another field. Is it possible to run separate shops for each company in a multi-company environment? Yes and no. For what I know, you will have the same layout for all the shops, the same time for all the shops, but I can be wrong on this point, but I don't think so. And to sell different products, you have to create record rules based on the users of the shops, of the companies. Here, the companies, you have some public users somewhere. For the public users configuration, you have to check, but you need to create a record rule. Here, you will create a record rule for the public users. Need to ensure that it's the group of the public users. I'm not sure of this. On the object product template and product for read, you will be able to read, and you will add whatever domain you want to filter the products by companies, depending on the criteria you have on your shops for your different companies. Is there an iOS app coming similar? Is there a release date or roadmap available for V11? I'm not aware of this. I don't know. I don't know. I cannot answer if there is an iOS app coming. Another question, another customer is a mechanic who has also a parts store. His question is how to maintain stock while having as less steps as possible. So the question is to create sales order and have warehouse shipping automatically approved. Is the POS pass system more suitable for him? Yes, and no, you will need to print out sales order and receive payment by bank transfer mostly. Yes, the POS could be suitable for him, but you can also on the sales orders here, sales orders here, you can easily add a new button that will perform all the operations of validating the quotation into a sale order, generating the invoice, and validating the stock moves. So you create a method, and the buttons simply have the name of your action, and you will be able to perform whichever action you need. But you're right, the POS does it automatically. But the POS is available offline, so it's normally a great feature to have it working offline. But that also means, as the POS is working offline, the POS will get all information in cache. And if your customer is using multiple price lists, I don't think it will be usable on the POS. But as always, I have to double check with a colleague of mine. Separate shop is not possible. Hi sir, I have one doubt. How to create a whole custom table in Odoo 8? Can anyone help me? How to create a custom table in Odoo 8? I can go in Odoo 8 if it's what you're talking about. On Randbot version 8. I go in debug mode. Settings, users, and technical features is set. So normally I have technical database structure models. So if you want to create your custom model, you can here the main thing is that it should start with x underscore. If you are using Python file, you can create them as in all Odoo versions, like you can see here on the build the module training. If you create your own model, name, which is a char. Yeah, I've created a simple model. If you want to add many to one to many, many to many, it's also fully doable. And you can, if you are using Python code, You can scaffold a module. It will create a new blank module with all the required fields to create your module very easily. Is there a place where we can see what modules solutions suit what customer requirements? How to match the solutions to customer requests? You should ask your account manager, which will be able to help you and forward your question to the right guy here at Odoo, which will help you in choosing the right modules to fit the requirements. Can I create multiple instances of one database? One is for live users, one is for demo. Where can I go where I can do changes, but the changes don't want to reflect on the first one? How to achieve this? So you will have two separate databases, and you want to have some things done on one, the demo, for example, and not the one for live users. If I understand well the question, you can create a module where you do your changes and you do not install this module on the other databases. So all of your customizations will be available where the module is installed and not available where the module is not installed, if it's what you are talking about. In the table, I want to create a column 1 as employee ID, column 2 as an amount, and column 3 as a date field. Okay. Let's say I've created a module. You want an employee, X employee ID, field label is the employee, field type is a many-to one. The model for employee is HR employee, I think. HR employee. You need an amount. So X amount, the amount, which is of kind of let's say a float, and you want a date field, X date, field type is of date, 7 close, here it is. And if you do it on a regular module, here in your models, close my model, models.model, name is my awesome table, and you have the employee ID, which is fields.many-to-one HR employee, string is employee, and so on for the dates and the amount. So here is how to create a table, and you do not create table. In fact, you create models, and the system translate your models into tables. Yes. Okay. Check if there is any other question. No other question. Okay. If there's no, yeah. Okay, if there's no other question, I will show something. If you have any question, don't hesitate to ask him and ask the question, and I will answer the question. Okay. I'm on a database where I have, yeah. Can we customize Odoo without using Python code? If yes, then how far can we customize from UI and XML? Yes, you can customize Odoo without using Python code. In fact, the Python method will be stored in an XML file. If yes, then how far can we customize? Okay. When you create a module, you can create Python file and XML files. XML files simply only contains data. An XML record is you define the record tag, and in the record tag you define a tag for each field you want to and the values. So you are able to store in XML files pretty anything you want. Pretty everything in Odoo is stored in the database except the code itself. So that means the views are stored in XML files. You can create models in the database. So if you can create models in the database, you can also create models using an XML file. A model is in the database, data structure and models, a record in ir.model. So if I create in an XML file a record in ir.model, in the model ir.model, you will create a new model. There is one exception: you cannot update this record, so you need on the data tag use no update equal to true. If you want to add fields on this model, it's the same. You give it a name, field model name, for example. The model you create in XML file must match the same rules as the one you must match when you create them in the interface. If I create a new model in the interface, the model name should start with an X underscore. So here in my XML file, I need to have field name is model should start with X underscore. To create a field, you have to create a record in a table in a model called here model fields. You must give to the record you are creating in XML all values for mandatory fields here, the field type, the model, the field name, the field label. You can either choose if the field is copied or not, indexed or not, read-only, computed, related, and so on. So you can create all your models, all your fields in XML files. Views are already in XML files, and you can also create demo data and so on. So you can safely create a module in XML files. Searching for the question. Yeah, so you can customize from XML, and from UI I will show how to customize it. How do I use a Google Doc as a template for a letter? I did not find a way to use replacement words in the documents. I should ask to a functional colleague of mine for this question, so sorry. What will happen to the changes to modules I made on apps that I had installed on Odoo Online? What happens to them if I don't pay after 15? It's just a trial version. To the changes to modules I made on apps that I had installed on Odoo Online. Normally, if you do not pay on Odoo Online, the database is deactivated, and after a certain amount of time, and I'm not aware of this amount of time, the database is deleted from the server. So if you don't pay after 15 days, you will lose access to your changes and your data. How to create snippets. Snippets of code. Via Jan, if you can explain more deeply your question, how to create snippets, I will answer the question. I need to use Odoo for university. How can I bring in the admission module? If the admission module is a Python module, you cannot install it on Odoo Online, but if you are on site and you want to install a custom module, you will push your module somewhere on the disk, and when you launch Odoo, you have a parameter which is the add-ons path, and the add-ons path is simply a list of folders which contains add-ons. So you will have the add-ons folder, which is the standard add-ons, the enterprise add-ons, and you can add any other folder which contains add-ons. If it's not the question you are asking, Kennedy, don't hesitate to clarify it and I will answer. In the future, hope to see comments being recorded along with the video as we get to see questions as well, just a thought. Yes, we are aware of this, and I don't know how we will change this, but we are aware of this. Website snippets. Well, for website snippets, I think that website snippets are simply QWeb templates, but I have to answer I have to ask to a colleague of mine. I'm not aware of how to build my own website snippets. Maybe you will here find the answer here. Either in building a website or building interface extensions. I think that you will find your answer here with here the widget helpers and the How do we use community version to create or play with modules? We are a Odoo partner company, and you mentioned that we lose changes after 15 days if we don't pay. My thought is that just pays not as... if you are using the Odoo online version, you cannot use the community version. To use the community version, you have to deploy it on premise. If you are an Odoo partner and you want free databases, you will have to ask your account manager. I'm not the one to give free databases. I even don't know how to give a free database to someone. Can you create method in models created in interface? Yes and no. You cannot create methods on a model the same way you create them in Python. In Python, to add a method to a custom model, you simply have to use decorator, then use main method, and automatically your method is callable from the interface. On models creating the interface, you cannot create a method on the model itself. What you have to do if you want to add method to an object you have created in the interface is to use the server actions features. Yeah, server stopped. So sorry. So to create a new server action, you create a new server action. For example, let's say model 9 base model. You will choose either your custom model, but you can also do this on existing models. Let's say sale order, for example. You will choose to execute Python code. You will do whatever you want. For example, warning my method. Here it is. Here is the server action created. The server action have an ID. So in the view, sales orders, as already stated, you have to create inherited view, but to go a bit faster, I'm editing here directly the view, and if I update the module, I will lose my changes. But if you do an inherited view, you will not use your changes. So you create a new button. The name is the ID of the called method. Type is not object but action, and string is my method. Here it is. Yeah. Okay, I've done a mistake. Yeah. Warning. Save. And call my method. And the warning is raised. The method is called. Here it is. So It's possible to add method, but it's not as obvious as if you are in Python code. Yeah, you're right. Community edition is free, and you do whatever you want as long as you have your own server. Can I not install Community Edition on my laptop instead of server? Yes, of course, you can install a Community Edition wherever you want. You can install it on all the laptops of your developers for the Community Edition. Can I not have Community Edition and online version at the same time? Yes, you can have as many online version and as many community edition as you want at the same time. You can have as many versions. Yes, you're right. Typically, you install server version of and use different config file pointing to different ports. Yes, you can have as many servers running on the same server at the same time. You just have to run them on different IP ports, and you can have a reverse proxy like Nginx to forward to the right Odoo version depending on the fully qualified domain name requested. Okay, hope this answered the questions you had regarding the Odoo versions. Can your server actions use external Python libraries? No, you cannot. In server action, it's a safe eval. You cannot do whatever you want. For example, you cannot use print, you cannot import modules. So you have to do with what you have, and what you have is very limited. You have the environment, the time, date time, and date-util and time zone Python libraries, a log method, a warning method, and that's, I think that's all. I think you do not have more than this. So you need to play with that. But normally, as you have the Odoo environment, you have access to all Odoo objects and all Odoo object methods. So normally, this is sufficient to build a simple module. For bigger modules, you have to use Python code to create your module. So, yeah. Can you show me how to use on-premise Community Edition? For sure, that's quite easy. You need mainly one thing. You need mainly the source code of Odoo. You can find all the source code on GitHub. You can clone it somewhere. Once it's done, you go in the directory, and if you simply run Odoo bin, you will launch a Community Edition Odoo server. Here it is. It's running. It's up and running. As I have plenty of databases already on my computer, the system is a bit slow because it's listing databases and searching for enterprise versions. I advise you, if you run multiple Odoo versions on the same machine, you will have to use arguments to the command line, and you can find all the arguments to use on the documentation itself here. And the most common one are DB filter, to restrict databases to based on their name. For example, here I will run Odoo 10 Community Edition, and so, for example, I will try to say, okay, only the one starting with Community Edition 10. And the system will run pretty every database starting with Community Edition 10, for example. To run it on different IP ports, you have XML RPC port parameter. Here it is. Let's say 10,069. Yeah, missing 10. And here it is. I have no databases which names start with Community Edition 10. I have to create one, but it doesn't matter. And you can run as many services as you want, as there are on different IP ports. If you are using workers, you should be aware that Odoo is using 2 IP ports instead of one for the long polling requests and one for the RPC requests. So you also have to change the long polling port of Odoo if you run multiple instances on the same server. So you also have to use a different long polling port, and you can use workers by adding the worker parameter, and that's it. Noted that you have 4 HTTP workers to handle the requests. Hope this will answer the question. When I write a method in a module, is this method stored in some way in the database, or not enough to restart the server to reload the written code? No, the method is not stored in the database. It's enough to restart the server to reload the written code. It's enough. But your module have to be installed. As in Odoo, you can add method to objects even if you are not in the module which define the object itself. For example, Odoo contains a sale order object by default, and if I want in my module to add a method to a sale order, I can sale order model. I will inherit from sale.order def my method 1. No, my method 1 is available on the sale order object once my module will be installed. So, and if I change the code of my object, and if I save the file, if the Odoo server was started before, it will not take into account the modified code. You will have to restart your server to take into account the new code. I have localhost 8069 opening Odoo. Does it mean Odoo Community Edition running on my system? It means you have an Odoo running on your system. I don't know if it's a Community Edition or Enterprise Edition. It depends on the module you have on the add-ons path and the module available for the system. Can you show me how to import data from CSV file in any model and how to add custom fields if not mapped by Odoo in Odoo 10 Community Edition? Yes, normally this kind of question is for my functional colleague, but if you want to see in Community Edition, you go to the Runbot and yeah, Community Edition. Is this the community? Yeah, it's the Community Edition. Let's say sales, customers. Let's view import. Then you choose your CSV file and you will open as those to import the data in the database. How to add custom fields in the if not mapped by Odoo in Odoo 10. Normally, when you import a CSV file, the Odoo will find the column based on the first line of the CSV file. The best way to check the format of a CSV file for Odoo is to export one record with the fields you want to import. Export to file. And you have the naming convention for the fields you are trying to import. You should be aware that the ID is never the database ID in XML files, but the XML ID. I have installed Odoo Enterprise on port X, and however, couldn't launch Enterprise. I could launch Community Edition thought. Yeah. If you have installed an Odoo and you are running only the Community Edition, no, so sorry, I'm wrong. Yeah, it's a regular expression for the DB filter, so it's I was wrong for the DB name. Here it is. Okay. 1869. I will create a new database based on the name here. Admin, load demonstration data, create the database. If you are only on the Community Edition, that's because you do not have the server. When the server start, it doesn't have access to the add-ons folder, the Enterprise add-ons folder. To check this, Here, when the server starts, you have the list of the add-ons path the system have access to, and the enterprise is not part of the add-ons path by default in the command line. To run the enterprise edition, you will need another parameter, which is add-ons path, which value is the standard add-ons and the enterprise add-ons. You will find the enterprise add-ons on GitHub. You will have to clone them on your machine. I have already cloned them here in the enterprise folder of my machine, and when the server starts, you may notice the difference from now. I have access to the enterprise add-ons, and now when I will create a new database, it will be an enterprise database and not a community edition database. I have a 5-user enterprise version. Can I add additional users from which I concurrently use max 5 users at a time? Use different post user at a time? No, if it's named users. So if you have a 5-user enterprise version, you can add additional users, but those users will be billable if you use them concurrently, because it's named users, it's not concurrent users. At Odoo, I don't know if this depends on you, but it would be awfully nice to be able to write links in the comments, many questions that could be easily answered with a simple link to your documentation. No, it does not depend on me, and it's not easy for me to push comments on the chatter. During a module installation, is there a way to ignore an offending XML file with a not found ID other than commenting it from manifest? No, and I would say that if you have an error when you are installing your module, it's better to solve the error rather than commenting the wrong file. This should be maybe this is due to wrongly defined dependencies. When you create a module, in the manifest, you have a depends, and this depends is a list of modules that have to be installed before your module. Let's say you extend the sale order features. You add features to the Odoo existing sale order model. Your module needs to be installed after the sale, and your module require the sale module. So in the depends, you should add sale to ensure that the sale module is installed before your module, and when the server starts, that the sale order is the sale order registry is loaded before your module. If you forgot the depends or do a mistake in the depends, you can face strange errors with the system saying an XML ID is missing or stuff like that. And but when you read the code, you see that the XML ID is existing and so on. So it's a bit hard to answer more deeply, but I would say that if you have an ID not found, maybe have a look at the depends and check why this ID is missing instead of commenting out the file. I'm using the multiple company function in Odoo. I want to prevent the function to create a new warehouse, a sequence and operation after creation of a new company. To prevent the function to create new warehouse sequence and after creation of a new company. Well, I have to have a deeper look what going on when you create a new company. But I think that a warehouse is linked to one company, so it's quite normal to have a warehouse created automatically. But I can be wrong. I can be wrong on this. Was this answer to me about documentation above? No. I see all the experts here, and this is fantastic. Don't we have a place with all of us being the members? It would be nice if there is a Odoo social network. There is a Odoo social network, I think, and I think the first place where you can meet Odoo experts is coming to the Odoo Experience Days. Where can I find the relevant code? I have to, Radomi, where can I find the relevant code? I have to find a question related to, yeah, for the multi-company. Yeah. Searching for the code for the company model or a model which inherit from the company on the sales stock. No. Yeah, it's not here. Yeah, here is one of the offending method you want to override. In fact, when you install the stock module, the stock module extend the company feature and override the default create method. Then equal the default create method, then create the warehouse and sub locations from for this company. So here is the location of the code you want to remove, and removing this will not be that easy, because if you have installed the stock module, this method is always called before the standard company create method. To remove this, you will have to either monkey patch this function or completely rewrite the create method. But I think that it's not something you should try to do. I think you will face issues somewhere as if you remove this piece of code. How to add BCC in email template. There is a BCC field in the main module, but it's not reflected in the database. I don't know. I don't know. Try BCC. Yeah. So the sending method is taking it into account, and we should check in the mail template if it's spotting the right parameters to the email send method. Maybe there is any documentation regarding email integration with Outlook, MS Exchange servers. Well, Odoo does, as far as I know, Odoo doesn't speak with Outlook directly. It speaks with Exchange or Office 365. It's a server-to-server call, let's say. I think that there is an Odoo documentation on the user side, on the discuss, and you have how to use my own email server to send and receive emails in Odoo. And normally you will find information on how to use your external mail servers with Odoo, with a special note for the SPF. I know that Exchange Office 365 is enforcing an SPF record, so you have to read this SPF notice for if you are using Office 365. How to dynamically filter fields? I can achieve this by adding unchanged method. If you mean filtering field based on values of other fields, you can use a domain on a field with a value coming from the other field, but the other field must be present in the interface. You have let's say field A and field B, and you want to filter the field B values based on the field A value. You can use a domain which will use field A in the domain, but you will need to have the field A in the web interface, because it's the web client which will issue the RPC query with the right domain. And to ensure having the right values for the domain, you will have to have the field in the web interface. The problem with this is that when the record newly created, it triggers method, but if I do a right edit of that same, the unchanged method is not triggered, and since the filter does not work. So yes, normally with the domain will be enforced even if you do a write or an edit. Can anyone make changes in runbot.odoo server? What do you mean by making changes in runbot.odoo? Yes, I passed BCC with that method, but it does not work. Maybe open a ticket and I'll have a deeper look to your question. It would be nice if we could associate the debug mode to users so that the debug mode would be loaded at login. Well, maybe. I know that there is a Google Chrome extension to automatically enable the debug mode, but I'm not using it, so I don't know how it's called. Probably Odoo debug mode. Yes. Is there any other question? Do you have any? No other question? Yeah, Jamie Funk, you're right. It's a little monkey. I posted on Stack Overflow. The title is "One Too Many Field Issue Odoo Chan." Okay. One too many field issue Odoo Chan. Yeah, I don't think that. Very rare issue with one too many fields. I have one too many fields in cell order line. Test module. Test location, one too many. What is happening is that when I create a new cell order, I select the partner ID and then add a cell order line. And inside this line, I add the one too many field test location. And then I save. Create a new sale order, select partner ID, then add sales order, and inside the sale order, add the test location line. Close the sale. Now, after the entry, before hitting save, I change the field, say partner ID, and then click save. In this case, it's the same as case 2, but with yeah, okay. So your issue is well. So you create a new cell order, you select the partner, and then add a cell order line at the test location. Before hitting save, I change the field, say partner ID, and then click save. And then you have an error because expressions of the integer. Well, I have to create a module with your modification and alter the view and retry to debug your module, because I reading this, I do not understand why it's going wrong. So I have to double check by creating a module and debugging it. I keep this for after if we still have time to do so. Is it possible to group purchase request for quotation to generate one purchase order for the same vendor, of course? Not for what I know, but you can create your own method to achieve this. You can create your own method here. Restart the server. So we're starting. Yeah. Well, I've created a database and interrupted it, so well. Okay. So on purchase, you want to get different purchase request for quotations, and then you can add a method, and using adding this method in the action menu to create a grouped purchase order. So you will mainly group the different requests for quotation and validate them. I have a question. How do I see the backend Python code for any module to understand the underlying logic? For the Odoo modules, you can find them on, you can find all the code on GitHub. Here it is. You will find all the add-ons here. And here you will find all the code to understand the logic. If you are running an enterprise version of Odoo, you will get the code in the enterprise. Yeah, I'm not signed in, so I do not have access to the enterprise. So I need to log in, and then I will gain access to the enterprise repository where the enterprise code is located. And then you can search safely the code you can clone them on your computer and search into the code. For the OCA modules, they are also using GitHub, and depending on your partner and your installation, maybe you have to ask your partner to know where all the code is located. Yes, we'll try to do it, but I need to have time to answer this question. Will do my best. Hello, sir. How to add Python code for gross deduction calculation in payslip? You have to create your own module here. It will depend on the HR module. You will inherit from the payslip model, and you will override the method called to do your own computation in the method. So normally, I think that in HR payroll, I think I will find a payslip here, and according methods here, and you have to override the method you want to add your own computation. How do I back up a database or logic before making changes? To back up a database, you can use either the web interface or the PostgreSQL backup feature. If you are using the PostgreSQL backup feature, you should ensure that you also back up the file store of Odoo, and to back up the business logic, you should take a backup of the Odoo code itself. Yeah. What is the best way to get files from front end to back end? Is there a better way to send files from the front end to the back end? Yes, you can create any binary field wherever you want, and then with a JavaScript, you can encode the file content in base 64 and send it to the binary field using RPC. Yeah. So, if I've missed a question, don't hesitate to come back with the question. I haven't intentionally missed a question, but maybe I've missed one. Yeah. A bit of water. How to replace the company logo in the backend? How to inherit templates? I think that you can do it with Studio now. I think that with Studio you can change the logo in backend. if you are talking about this, I think that you can change it with Studio. The price. Enterprise version. This is 15. Change background, and then you can change the background if this is what you are talking about. Is there any other question? No other question? Okay. We'll keep it for later if I get time to answer this question. Okay. Let's say we have a running Odoo instance. We have started this instance, and we want to ensure that this instance will be able to handle the number. Hardware required. Walter for 30 user online. Yeah, you have a talk of Olivier Donny, a colleague of mine, which have give some hints on how to compute the hardware requirements on a per user basis. And the rule is a worker can handle around 6 users. A worker can handle around 6 users. So in your case, you need 5 workers. A CPU, a real CPU, not an hyper-threaded one, a real CPU can handle around 2 workers. So for 5 users, roughly, you need 2 real CPUs. So not one CPU hyper-threaded, you need 2 real cores on the CPU. And then that's for the number of CPU, but you should also be aware that the cron workers will also take resources. So that's for the CPU computation. If you want to know for the memory, we could say that roughly an Odoo worker will take around, we say that 90% of the request needs 100 megabytes of RAM, and 10% of the requests needs 1 gigabyte. So you have roughly something like let's say, number of workers, which is multiplied by 90%, which needs 100 megabytes of RAM, and 10% of them needs 1 gigabyte of RAM. So roughly you have the amount of memory for Odoo. If we talk about PostgreSQL, it will depend on the database size, of the size of your database. You will need to ensure that, if possible, be able to store all your database in memory. Now, if you are using low modules with few computation, the system will require less CPU. If you are using modules with plenty of computed fields and plenty of computation everywhere, you will need more CPU. So I can say that if your 30 users are users for, let's say, MRP, for example, you will need more CPU and memory than if you deploy only a CRM, for example. It's really a matter of which modules you are deploying on your instance. So sorry. So here are the rules for the CPU and the memory computation for the hardware requirements. If you are, we always recommend deploying on bare metal servers, never on virtual machines. The hypervisor layer in virtual machines comes with his advantages and disadvantages, so you have to take those into account also when you are creating the virtual machine. How to connect WK-HTML to PDF to Odoo in Windows 10? I don't know. I've never done that, and I will discourage you to deploy Odoo on Windows 10. On deploying on Odoo on Windows means you can only use the multi-threaded version of Odoo. If you want to use the multi-thread version of Odoo, you will need a Unix to run it. So in Python, only one thread at a time can execute bytecode, so you will roughly only use one CPU at a time with the multi-threaded version of Odoo. So on Windows 10, you will only use one CPU at a time. So I advise you to deploy it on Unix, and then you will be able to use WK-HTML to PDF. But if you really want to deploy on Windows 10 with WK-HTML to PDF, I advise you to send an email to the support, and they will help you through a ticket to help to make WK-HTML to PDF running on with Windows 10. What are your choices of DevTool, and how do you go about debugging code? If you ask for my choices, I've already said earlier in this talk that I'm using a Linux laptop with I'm using Atom, and I'm using a lot of a terminal, and for debugging I'm using PUDB, which is a quite easy tool to use for Python debugging. That's the dev tools I'm using. And if we got time, I can show you how you can debug code. If you're really interested, I'll add a comment and I will show you how to debug a Python code. What operating system is ideal for Odoo deployments and the difference between them? I don't think that there is an ideal operating system. We deploy mainly on Linux. There is just a restriction on Windows because due to the Python GIL, you can run only a thread at a time. So we need to run the multi-process version of Odoo, and each process will use its own CPU. I can show you an example. Here I'm using the multi-thread version of Odoo. I have not set any worker, and if I generate some load on the server, I have to retrieve what I've done earlier. Here it is. We'll create some artificial load on the system. Then users. Here the system is using 10 users, but I'm mainly using only one CPU at a time. Roughly, I use only one CPU, and I think that I need to use more CPU to handle more requests per second. To do so, I need to use the workers parameter, set it to 4, for example. So I have started 4 HTTP workers, and now if I create some artificial load on the system, let's say the same 10 users, on the load of the system, I'm able to use more CPU. All the CPU are used. Each worker is running on his own CPU, and I use more resources on the system and then answering more requests per second. So this parameter, this worker parameter, is not usable at all on Windows. That means if you deploy on a Windows server, you will use only one CPU of the server, which is a kind of a problem to handle the load. That's why we do not recommend Windows. For the rest, you can choose either Linux. I know that some are using BSD, but most of the time it's deployed on Linux. What is the use of integration level in delivery carrier? It display when create delivery method. I advise you to ask this question to a functional colleague of mine. With Studio, is it possible to force it to create an inherited view? Studio create inherited view. Studio doesn't alter the existing views. So normally it's done by default. It doesn't make sense to alter the original view. You should alter. I have experience in Odoo development of 1 year. Is it easy to get part-time job in Odoo dev for Germany, Belgium? I'm not the one to answer this question. I don't think that. I think that if you are good at developing, you will find easily a job. Okay, maybe the answer is not. No, it's not easy to get a part-time job. Do we have Odoo functional expert conducting a live chat similar to this? Yes, this morning there were a functional colleague of mine which do the same, and I think we do those live supports every Friday. So normally every Friday there is this kind of live support. You can ask questions. Most of the time it's the functional guys, and sometimes it's a technical guy. And this time it's the time we have the technical guy. So this morning there was a functional expert, and I think that this evening European time there will be an American colleague of mine which will also do the same exercise. So normally this evening there is also a live chat like this. Is it easy to get projects from Belgium or Germany to develop in India? If so, any tips to get the work or increase sales? I don't know. I cannot answer you. Maybe others can answer you, but I cannot answer this question. Okay. Is Odoo work well on Docker? We have yes. There is an official Docker image. Odoo Docker. There is an official Odoo Docker image with the community edition of Odoo, and this Docker image only contains Odoo. You will need a PostgreSQL server also. We have customers from small size to mid size which use Docker for their deployments. And I don't think we face issues related only to Docker. I was having problem configure email that send out of Docker. Yeah, you should you should give me more information on your problem to configure email that sends out of Docker, because normally out of the box you can send emails from Odoo on Docker or not. So I need more information to answer your question. We are reviewing some tax calculations, and 7% is being calculated at 7.1719. Yes, I also need a bit more informations on this. Maybe it's due to rounding, or do we have to create another Docker for? Yes, you have to create another Docker to send for if you need an email server. I don't think the Odoo Docker image contains an email server, but I can be wrong on this point. So, Luis Alberto, give me more information on the tax calculation issue and I will have a look. How does one-to-many and many-to-many relation work in Odoo? I think one-to-many relation creates a table with foreign key. How is many-to-many handled? Please clear both. Okay. The real relationism is the many-to-one. The many-to-one creates a field in a table, and the one-to-many is only a virtual relation, which is kind of computed from the many-to-one. The one-to-many is the inverse of a many-to-one. So the many-to-one links one model to another, and the one-to-many takes the other and lists all the models linked to it. So there is no relation table in the case of a one-to-many, many-to-one. It's simply a field with a foreign key constraint. In the case of a many-to-many, you can link, if you have two models, let's say model A and model B, you can link as many records of model A to as many records of model B. So here, in this case, we need a relation table. This relation table contains only two columns with the ID of the model A and the ID of the model B. So in the case of a many-to-many, you have a relation table. In the case of a one-to-many, many-to-one, you do not have a relation table. So if you have model A with a one-to-many to model B and model B with a many-to-one to model A, you have in database only two tables. If you have from model A a many-to-many to model B, you will have in your database three tables. You can use the same many-to-many to go from model A to model B and to go from model B to model A. So the only thing you have to do is to, in the definition of the many-to-many, you will have to use the same table name. You will define in the first case AAD as column 1, BAD as column 2, and in the second case you will use BID as column 1 and AID as column 2. You will just have to invert the column 1 and column 2, and you will have a link from model A to model B and from model B to model A. I think, I hope this will, this is clear enough for the one-to-many and many-to-many. If you have any other question, don't hesitate to ask the question regarding the one-to-many and the many-to-many. Can you show how to debug the JavaScript in any IDE? Yes, if you want. To debug the JavaScript, I'm using Google Chrome. In fact, I'm just using a debugger in the of the Google Chrome, or you can use the tag TT debug in the QWeb view to add the debugger sentence in the JavaScript file, but to debug the JavaScript in Chrome, it's not that easy because all sources are grouped in assets, and it's not easy to debug. So to debug this, you simply add debug, which is equals to assets. This makes the debug assets makes every file send it on its own, and then it's easier to debug because you have access to each line of code, and you can add simply debug points. So I'm not using an integrated development environment for JavaScript, but maybe some others do. I'm not part of them. How can I integrate an external REST API with Studio? Studio is changing the interface, adding models, fields, and so on. I don't know how to integrate it with an external REST API. Hello, Elizabeth. Yeah. Waiting for the questions. If there's no other question, we will stop the support, the live support. So thank you everybody, and see you later, and hope to see you on October in the Odoo Experience Days. Yes, Luis Alberto, you can open a ticket with your use case. We will handle this in the support, but it's maybe due to the rounding of the taxes. Can you suggest a faster way to deploy the code? The way I'm using to deploy the code is using Git. So I think it's fast enough. Where can I see the adjustments? Yeah, open a ticket, and we will try to get more deeper in your use case, Luis Alberto. Will Odoo Experience be transmitted online? I think so. I think that it will be transmitted online. When again do we have your session? I think that I do a technical session once a month. I hope every Friday there is a session. Every Friday there is at least functional session and maybe a technical. I think it's technical once a month. I do not have access here to the planning. I mean, deploy and upgrade the module. To deploy and upgrade the modules, I simply stop the server, and then I perform the -u all on the server. This stops the server, but there are ways to not stop the server, but they are not safe, so it's better to stop the server when you upgrade the modules. Normally, when you update to the next Odoo version, you normally do not need to perform an upgrade of the standard Odoo modules. The current rounding for taxes, I think it's defined on the currency itself, but I can be wrong on this point. Yeah, anyone knows a way, prompt command to update a module rather than using the interface? Yes, you can. Here, when you start the server, you can add a parameter -u for update and the name of the module. So -u sale will update sale and all the modules which depends on sale. Where are tickets open? You can go to odoo.com/help and you can create a ticket from here. Can I run Odoo Enterprise from source on my development for testing purpose? Yes, I have done this all the afternoon long, and each database, each enterprise database which is created is available for 1 month. Okay, fine. See you later.